Hey guys, I'm back. It's Sarah from Sarah's Theories, and I'm back, you guys. Now, I know you guys have been wondering why I've been uploading for a while, because I've been thinking of some good movie ideas that would actually benefit to the audience. And I was thinking, I know a lot of theory people have been doing these videos lately, but I plan to do more. And that's why I want to talk about Wonderland and Oz. These two places have been on my mind for a very long time, and I plan to actually talk about them. And I want to talk about them today as if they either are, one, a dream, or reality. Now, as you all been knowing, I've been trying to actually get some new editing software, so don't worry guys, I will upload as much as I can this week because I have finals, and I hope all you college students out there who are doing all this stuff will pass your test, whatever it is. So let's begin talking about the one place we all want to talk about, and that is the place where two places, both these places are dream places, and they both take place in the mind of these two female protagonists. One for Oz, it's Dorothy, and for Wonderland, it's Alice. Now, there have been some questions on the internet about whether Wonderland and Oz are real places to these people, but I'm going to prove today that either Wonderland and Oz are real places in the minds of these two, or that they're just places. And I'm going to take evidence that I have off of Alice Madness Returns and many other films that include Alice and the movies, video games, and I'm going to take as much evidence as I can. And I'm going to try to include something from Oz, from many movies made from the movie Oz the Great and Powerful, and many others, guys. So what I'm going to do first is I am going to talk about Wonderland. Now let's talk about these, but first let's talk about these two places. One, they both have really everything in common. One, both contain two female protagonists who are the main characters in their stories. Two, they both go to a magical world. For Alice, it's Wonderland. For Dorothy, it's Oz. And we both know that they end up meeting a lot of friends on the way. For Alice, it's her friends in Wonderland. And for Dorothy, it's her friends the Scarecrow, Tin Man, and Lion. And they end up facing evil people who want to destroy them. For Dorothy, it's the Wicked Witch. For Alice, it's the Red Queen. But they end up meeting, they end up actually meeting a person. But then they end up meeting a good person who wants to help guide them on their journey. For that is the White Queen in Alice in Wonderland, and Glinda in The Wizard of Oz. Now, true enough, guys, these two have never met, but both suffer from the same thing that people think most of: madness. Now, people say that this is all in Dorothy's head from either the books or the movies, and I'm going to judge off of the books and the movies, guys, so don't worry. So, let's get into it. So, as you all know, I have been a stickler for the rules all the time. And when it comes to movies like this, I want to do more about it. Now, if you all remember Oz the Great and Powerful, we never got much answers from Dorothy's side of the story or anybody's side of the story. We never knew Oz's past before anything ever happened. But thankfully, guys, today we are going to find out more answers. And thanks to Oz the Great and Powerful, we have a little bit more input to the past of the other characters we barely know about in The Wizard of Oz, like the Wicked Witches and Glinda's backstory and where the wizard came from. Now, true, we see in many of the books and the movies, we do see the wizard a lot. There's actually been even a TV show about it. But we'll get to Oz in a minute. We're going to first talk about the first place ever, and that is Wonderland. Now, Wonderland is no stranger to madness. If any of you have played the Alice Madness Returns, you all would know that that place is full of nothing but mystery and madness. Now let's talk about Alice's case. From what we can see in the movie by Tim Burton, this movie actually gives us a lot better insight than the book does. Now we're going to go off Once Upon a Time as well, but we'll also get to talk about Alice. So Alice is one person for the roles, and she's your own little free spirit in this movie, and she travels to Wonderland the same way she came when she was a kid. And in this time, she's actually a grown woman. And we see that Alice faces a lot of terrible dangers along the way, but she actually is trying to prove something that we are already trying to prove on this video. Is her dream? She thinks she's dreaming, but it's actually real to her. But at the same time, she thinks it's real. Now, Alice, at the end of the movie, we all know she obviously thinks this is real. But we're going to try and prove that either Alice's world, Wonderland, is real, a real place, or is it a fake? Now, from what we can go off from seeing Alice Madness Returns, we see Alice go back and forth throughout Wonderland. She either faces, like, the Mad Hatter, or goes through a lot of challenges just to find out what's going on with her world, and even faces the Red Queen herself. Now, true enough, guys, Alice Madness Returns doesn't really help with our case, because Alice either leave whenever she is officially about to die, like she goes back and forth to Wonderland, and we never find out why. But thankfully, after watching a few cutscenes from the game, I do find out a bit more. So, true enough, Alice Madness Returns doesn't really add anything to our problems, but we can get some insights from Alice through the looking glass that maybe Wonderland is a real place. So, let's see what we can find out from Alice in Wonderland and Alice through the looking glass. Now, sure enough, guys, this Alice through the looking glass has a lot to offer more than the original film. Like, it tells us a little bit insight. Like, we know now through Alice through the looking glass that Wonderland has a past, and that past is actually a really long history. Like, from what we can tell from Alice into the Looking Glass, we get a whole backstory from the Mad Hatter in the first film, and we never knew exactly what he meant. But let me give you a whole backstory of Wonderland. Here's what happened a long time ago. Now, sure, we don't know what happened at the beginning of Wonderland, but we do know this. Wonderland was never called Wonderland in the first place. Alice just made that name up to, because it was full of wonder and excitement. But the real name for this place is called Underland, because to them, we are underneath them. Underland is ruled by these two rulers, a king and a queen, obviously. And Underland is a large place. And unlike Oz, it's not surrounded by anything. It's just large. It's like any other place you would ever find. And from what we can see, guys, we see that Wonderland has a kingdom, obviously. From what we can see, the Red Queen and White Queen do not come into play yet. But this is a whole past that we're just going to talk about, so go with me on this. So, Underland was ruled by the King and Queen of Wits End. Wits End Kingdom had a long history of king and queens ruling to protect the kingdom. And then came the Red Queen and White Queen, or the White Princess and the Red Queen, the Red Princess. So, and their real names, according to this, we find out that the Red Queen and the White Queen had real names. We found this in the first movie, but we never got any answers from the first movie other than their names. The Red Queen's name was Erasabeth, and the White Queen's name is named Marana. So these two grew up together as the closest of sisters, and sure enough, these two were the best of friends as seen in the movie. And we see that, well, in many ways, these two grew up together, but then came a very bad incident where where Murano lied to her mother, saying she didn't eat the tarts, which, if you've all watched Alice in Wonderland ever, you all would know that the tarts are the Red Queen's favorite food to eat. And apparently Murano lied, and Elizabeth is basically upset that she lied, and it's not fair that she has to be punished for her sister's lying. So she ends up going to we see that she ends up going to the village square and runs out there, and she bumps her head on like the statue. And usually that would have killed somebody, but then this is a magical land, so anything can happen. And because she hit her head so hard, you would think that she'd be dead, but instead she gets a big giant headache and her head starts to swell up like really, really big. And that's how she got the big head in the first place. So, and because of that, swelling kept swelling up really, really hard and fast, and it just kept on going. She never stopped. It never stopped growing, and every time she basically tried to carry, like, how can you carry a giant head on your shoulders? Like, you know the expression where they say you got a lot to carry on your shoulders? Well, the Red Queen had a lot to carry, her head on her own shoulders, and that was a lot to carry. So anyway, we pass many years to the future. Marana and Elizabeth are now young teenage girls, and as you know, Elizabeth was apparently the oldest child, and she was. So they're both being crowned because it's a crowning ceremony, their coming of age ceremony. So then Marana gets her crown first. I don't know why, but she does. And then comes Elizabeth. At the time, the Mad Hatter was named Tarrant Hightop. And apparently we find out the Mad Hatter's backstory and everything like that. So we see through a lot of things that basically the Mad Hatter's father was trying to put the crown on the Red Queen's head, and in the process broke the crown, and everyone burst out laughing, and this is where we see the off with your head theme that came to be. And when Elizabeth gets out of hand, the King of Wits End declares that Marana will be queen, and she officially will become queen upon his death. And Elizabeth throws a fit because, well, she was meant to be queen because she's the oldest. But her father thinks she's unfit to rule because of her anger and her temper. And so because of that, guys, we see that Elizabeth makes her head grow even bigger because she's upset and she hates them. And she thinks that this is Marana's fault because she started a long time ago. Because if she hadn't made her head grow, if she hadn't lied, her head wouldn't have grown so big. She wouldn't have hit her head in the town square. Her head wouldn't be so big. She would have gotten her crown and everything else like that. And yeah. So basically, that's what happens. But the future is yet to come, guys. So let's continue with the story. Basically, what happens many years later, the Red Queen ends up finding the Jabberwocky, and I think she trains it to, like, since it's evil and she's wicked as well, they both want something in return. And so I guess she made a deal with the Jabberwocky that she becomes queen and the Jabberwocky is free. And in the process, the White Queen, Marana, becomes, after their parents' death, Marana becomes queen of Wits End. And we see that Tarrant Hightop doesn't move very far from Wits End. And we see this because we tell in the first Alice in Wonderland that he was Hatter to the White Queen at the time, and that he dedicated his life to helping her. And because of this, we see that he's in the village where Wit's End used to stand. And apparently, the village that we saw in the first movie was the village of Wit's End. And apparently the Red Queen destroyed it, and the day that was called that day when the Red Queen destroyed Wit's End was called Hornvendish Day. And apparently the White Queen lost her crown, and the Vocal Sword was lost that could destroy the Jabberwocky. And then the Red Queen took over, and the White Queen was put out of power. But she still ruled her own little kingdom where she ruled. And if you guys ever noticed that these two did get along, but now they don't, because, well, if you see the castles, the Red Queen is like the Queen of Hearts, which is cards. She represents the cards, like gambling cards and all that stuff. And the White Queen represents chess and everything like that. So really, guys, and that's basically where, after that, the events of Alice in Wonderland take place. So we see a lot happen in the past. But now let's get into Alice's part of the story. She faces the Jabberwocky, obviously, and wins, and we see the White Queen be restored to power. But this goes to show one thing from what we can see from Wonderland is real or a dream. That Alice is that they have a past, and they have a real name, and from what we can see in Alice with the Looking Glass, they have time, and they live in a place. And true, they are alive and well. So, and obviously, since Alice can go through the Looking Glass and actually survive, and another thing to prove that Alice's Wonderland is real, because when she comes out, because when you see her go into the asylum and she breaks out and goes back to find the tie tops, we see that she's still wearing the asylum clothes she had before. But then as she and the Hatter go to find his family, which has been taken by the Red Queen, she's changed clothes. And when she leaves Wonderland permanently and goes to live her life again, she's wearing different clothes. She's still wearing the same clothes that she wore before when she went to the Looking Glass. But even though Alice in Wonderland, the first movie, makes this up for us because she was wearing, obviously, a knight in shining armor outfit, the same outfit that she wore back in Wonderland, and came out wearing the dress that she wore when she first fell through that rabbit hole. That kind of makes everything up for us. Same thing happened in Madness Returns when Alice was wearing this whole black and white outfit, and then she comes back wearing a different outfit as well every time she comes back to Wonderland. But if you see the Looking Glass one, she is a different size, same size as she really would be, but she's wearing the same outfit. So Looking Glass basically shows that even though Alice can go through a rabbit hole or through a Looking Glass, she can retain the same clothes she wore. Otherwise, she would have worn the same outfit that she wore when she escaped the asylum. Or the madhouse, so you want to call it whatever you want. But still, guys, this basically goes to show that Alice's place may be real. Now, the last thing I can tell you to prove that this place is so real and that it's probably not even a dream is because Alice can retain this place and even remember. Now, sure, at first she actually thinks it's not real, but we can actually prove that this place is definitely real from the first movie. Now, sure, the clothes are the same, but if you guys look very closely, the same scar marks from Alice when she was attacked by the Bandersnatch is still on her body, on her right arm, and still there. Even though they're healed and wounded, you may think that's just from her falling. That looks like a little bitty hole that anybody could fall through. But it actually happened. And therefore, I conclude, guys, that Alice's Wonderland is real. And there's no doubt about it, guys. The evidence is all there. How she got to keep the outfit that she wore when she was with the Hatter in Alice the Looking Glass. The Bandersnatch scars from when the Bandersnatch attacked her. And even though she didn't get the clothes from the first film, who could blame her? Going out there in a knight's outfit would be disruptful. And if that's not enough proof, guys, she comes back with the White Rabbit in Once Upon a Time in Wonderland. If you ever seen Once Upon a Time in Wonderland, you all would know that the White Rabbit is there, and the Red Queen, and all of her friends from Wonderland are there to celebrate Alice's wedding to Cyrus. So I conclude, guys, that Wonderland is a real place, and it's not just Alice's madness taking over. But you're probably wondering the question, is Alice really mad? Well, if you say people in England, and when she was living in England as Alice Kingsley, you could tell that madness was a sign of insanity. Obviously, it means the same thing, but truly enough, guys, Alice was, yes, she was a bit insane at times, especially if you've seen the video game Alice Madness Returns. Y'all would know Alice is just a bit insane because she does but people would think that, obviously. The only reason she's a little bit insane is because she's daring to do amazing things that women of the time would never do, women of her time period would never even do, and that was in the 1800s. So really, guys, you guys could tell that Alice had an insanity problem. But really, she kind of has a tendency to do all this stuff. But then again, you guys can say whatever you want about Alice. She can be insane, she could be daring, but people probably thought she was insane because she talked about stuff that was weird. And if you've seen Alice with Looking Glass, Hamish thought she was insane because she was just trying to, like, help a friend out. And because, well, she was following things that she didn't even need to see, and that she was doing crazy things and all that stuff, and jumping from windows and everything like that. Now, anybody could think that was insane at the time, but nowadays, guys, I don't think Alice is a little bit insane. Because if she was insane, she wouldn't have been telling the truth about Wonderland. So, really, guys, Wonderland is real. So let's get on to the next topic and put a check mark near Wonderland. It is a real place. In Alice's world, of course it is. But it's real in Alice in Wonderland and throughout the entirety of the movies. But let's get on to the next one, and that is Oz. Now, this one is a questionable one that it's not going to be easy to talk about. Unlike Wonderland having more evidence about proving it's real, Oz probably will not be the easiest one to even prove is real or a dream, especially from Dorothy's perspective. But to know how we know it's real or not real, we need to go to the past. Now, true enough, guys, if you remember, there have been many other films about Dorothy's returning to Oz. The Return to Oz by, I guess, Disney. And if you look at this poster, Return to Oz, Dorothy's Return. Now, true enough, this actually does a lot better. And there have been other films where Dorothy has returned to Oz, but we're not trying to talk about her return. We already know her story, and we know how her life works. Now, true enough, we do know a lot about her friends and a lot about them, how they probably came to be. And there's even like a few Easter eggs in other films. But we need to know Oz's past to know if Oz is a real place. And sure enough, we can tell from Dorothy's perspective as well, but we're also going to tell from Oz's perspective. Now, let's see if we can find any evidence about Oz's past. Now, we need to find the time and place when Oz took place. Now, true, like Wonderland, we cannot prove how far back. We cannot go as far back as, say, when Oz first came to be. And that's only a questionable answer because we still don't know if it's real or not real. And the only way, like I said, guys, we cannot, until we prove it's real or not real, we don't know if it's past, goes back as far as saying it's real place. But let's not get into Dorothy's story just yet. Like Alice's story we just did, we are going to go to the past of Oz. Now, guys, unlike this, I had a few bits of trouble because I was wondering when I first started to make this video, how am I going to find any movie that actually gives a past to Oz that doesn't involve Dorothy? Now, we do get some evidence from other films about Oz's past, but never get much information from the film or the characters or anything like that, except that the Emerald City was built by real emeralds and all that stuff. But unfortunately, there was nothing I could find that actually gives information on Oz's past. But then came Oz the Great and Powerful. Oh yes, this movie was a lifesaver to everything I wanted. It gave us more insight on the past of Oz before Dorothy even arrived, and even had something to prove about doppelgangers. Now, I know I didn't even bring this up before in the Wonderland theory part. I was mentioning the doppelgangers of people from the other world that had been brought into the world of Wonderland. Now that's something that would halt the theory in its tracks, saying, oh, they just thought these from memories of the people they met. And when Oz the Great and Powerful came out, I was so shocked to see many doppelgangers of different people, of people that Oz had met back in when he was in Kansas, including especially Glinda, since you played the same character. As we all know, back in The Wizard of Oz, when the first Wizard of Oz came out in theaters, Dorothy obviously proved that she had doppelgangers. But let's get into Oz's past before we can know anything. Now, true, this movie gives us insight to Oz's past before Dorothy even arrived in Oz in the first place. But it doesn't give us a lot to work with from the real past before Oz was a place. Like before the Emerald City, before anything like that. Now, I hope they'll make a movie about, like, before when the Emerald City was, when Oz was the beginning of Oz, and leading up into the events of the Wizard of Oz, but I don't think that movie will ever happen. I think we've done enough. And this movie was made by Disney, so I hope that they were accurate when it actually came to, like, the past of Oz. But Disney's always been a little bit accurate. Then again, they left some little dark past and everything like that. But true enough, this movie gives us better insight to the past. So let's begin with the past of, well, a little bit of the past. Now, we don't get to the beginning of Oz, like the beginning when Oz first became a place. Now, unlike Wonderland, this place is surrounded by a thing called the Deadly Desert. This is mentioned in Return to Oz, another Disney film that came out in the 1980s. And apparently, this place is surrounded by a deadly sand. You touch the sand, you turn into the sand. So, yeah. But, thankfully, even though we don't go to the beginning of Oz when it first came to be, apparently I found out from many other theory videos that this place was once cut off from the rest of the world. And apparently it will eventually disappear into another oblivion. But thankfully, it's going to be here for a very long time. So, this is the begin. So, if you all don't know what Oz the Great and Powerful is, or you missed the movie a long time ago, this movie came out, I think, in 2013 or so, and it stars James Franco, who plays the wizard, and we meet many other witches we didn't even know existed, including, like, people like the normal witches we would usually see, and we usually find out a lot of information. And sure enough, guys, my Wizard of Oz theory last time, which I barely talked about, I was new to YouTube at first. This theory is that that theory was basically a whole hoax, but I'm going to talk about it either way, mixed in with this. Now, this movie takes place before the time of Dorothy coming to Oz. Now, we see throughout this that the wizard did live in Kansas. And he joined with the circus, apparently, and he was nothing but a carnival magician and a con man. And this basically proves the wizard is a horrible person. But you'll see throughout the rest of this whole this whole movie that he actually turned into a good guy. We see that the wizard we actually end up meeting Dorothy's mother. And I forgot her name, but I do know that I think her name was Wanda, because the wizard ends up calling Glinda Wanda, and I don't know why, but that's just it. But we end up knowing that this woman is going to be Dorothy Gale's mother. You know why? Because the wizard ends up mentioning that John Gale asked her to marry him. Now, if you all never watched or read The Wizard of Oz, you all should know that Dorothy's aunt and uncle are Annie M and Uncle Henry. Annie M standing for either Emma or Emily or whatever. Yes, her name was Emily. Aunt M was named Emily, and Uncle Henry. Uncle Henry, not Uncle John, or anything like that. So obviously, this John Gale and this woman who is a doppelganger of Glinda in the real world, back in Kansas, is basically Dorothy Gale's mother. Now, that is a whole thing I didn't see coming at all, that the wizard had a thing for Dorothy Gale's mother, and that may how he didn't recognize like Dorothy's last name, like when he first met her, I'll never know. But this movie came out way after like the beginning of The Wizard of Oz, and I bet this would put L. Frank Baum to like a shock if he was still alive, probably. But then again, guys, that was basically the biggest shock of my life. We finally meet Dorothy's parents. Now, we never knew much about Dorothy's parents ever. She never mentioned them. She never knew them. That may show that, and after all, we never know, is Annie M and Uncle Henry John's brother and sister-in-law? Or sister-in-law and brother-in-law, or whatever. But we obviously I found out from Return to Oz that Annie M says she's my sister's family, which means that this woman that Oz met, who we're just going to call Wanda, is actually Annie M's sister, and that means that Annie M took care of Dorothy after, like, Dorothy's parents died for some reason. I don't know what they died from, probably a car crash, something like that, or maybe they died in a twister. Who knows? But because of this, we see the wizard was telling the truth the first time when he said he got swept up in a tornado, just like Dorothy, in his balloon, and was sent off to Oz. In this, we meet the first witch we ever meet, Theodora the Good. And if you don't know who she is, she's the one wearing the red hat. And Theodora is a good witch. And she ends up falling head over heels for the wizard because he's a womanizer. Heaven knows James Franco is. So, really, I gotta say, Theodora ends up falling head over heels for the wizard. And in the process, she thinks he's gonna marry him, become his queen, all that stuff. But that was all a lie. And in the process, we meet Finley, who, if you all remember the guy at the beginning of the film, if any of you watch Oz the Great and Powerful, that guy at the beginning of the film who Oz always bosses around but treats like his best friend? Yeah, that was him. He voices him. Like I said, everybody here in Oz has a doppelganger of someone basically anybody who comes to Oz who's not from the land, they have a doppelganger friend who looks and acts sometimes even like the people they knew back home. Like Glinda is obviously Wanda. Theodora is, I guess, the girl that he, like, used and betrayed and all that stuff, and used the show and everything like that. And, yeah, everyone has doppelganger. And Finley, the monkey, actually is, like, represents Oz's, assistant. And we see another character who acts just like someone from before Oz even came to, like, Oz. And apparently the wizard's name is Oz. So that's gonna get my nerves a lot. And apparently he's part of a prophecy where a wizard who falls from the sky will defeat the Wicked Witch and save the land of Oz. So Theodora leads him to the Emerald City, and in this process we see that he actually is pretending to be the wizard, and then we meet Evanora, who is the real Wicked Witch, if you haven't seen for her clothes. She may be all pretty and everything with her immortality and everything like that, but don't be fooled by her. She is Theodora's sister and the caretaker to the king. And apparently she's been ruling the Emerald City while the wizard was away. And we find out Oz was ruled by another ruler who was the king of Oz. We never find out his name, but we do know that he was a king, and we find out he had a child who was the heir to the throne. But Evanora claims that the daughter poisoned her own father and basically wanted the throne for herself. So the wizard ends up like bewitched by everything, the gold and the money, and he says he can't have it until he defeats the Wicked Witch. And Evanora and Theodora send him on a mission, and he ends up traveling with Finley, and they go to the China country where we meet the doppelganger of the little girl who was in the wheelchair who couldn't stand up. And that was the little China girl. And they end up helping her, and she ends up actually, after a little bit of crying, a little bit of whining, she finally convinces Oz to bring her along the road, bring her along for the journey. So they go to the dark forest. They encounter a lot of strange creatures that we're not going to talk about, and then they find the Wicked Witch, who turns out to be Glinda, the Good. And she tells the wizard the truth about Evanora lying to him, saying that she's the true Wicked Witch, and that they apologize for almost breaking her wand, which would have broken her powers. Now, there's something I want to get nitpicky about when talking about this movie. If you all haven't noticed, from these 3 witches that have now just appeared, they all have something in common. They all have a source to their immortality, to their powers, and to their magic, which will either kill them or nearly make them powerless. Now, there are objects on these women that these 3 witches end up having 3 things in common. They both have items of magic that can either make them powerless, kill them, or just, well, like I said, make them powerless. So for Evanora, her green emerald necklace, what a coincidence. Her emerald necklace gives her her power and her immortality glow to keep herself young. For Theodora, she has a weakness and the source of her powers. Her weakness is water. When she cries, literally, it leaves a real stain of nothing but a trail of tears behind. Literally, it leaves like a burn. Like it burns her skin when water touches her skin, and it leaves like a burn mark on there. So when she cries, it's like leaving a mark on her, and it burns. You know how when they say crying hurts? It hurts when you're crying, like the pain of heartbreak hurts. Well, for Theodora, it was real pain. But the source of her powers is a red ruby ring that she wears, which allows her to throw fireballs and everything like that. And not that I'm picking or anything like that, but that actually probably gives her all her powers. But the water probably would actually give her, kill her. Now you probably thinking you're probably wondering who has the power to die when water touches them. Now for Glinda, her wand is the source of her power. She doesn't have a ring or a necklace to control her magic. Her wand is the source of her powers, and if it break her wand, not only will she be powerless, but she will die. So these 3 girls have really touched the bar on who's going to die and who's not. So basically, Evanora tells Theodora that she and the wizard had in a very romantic night before he left. And this causes Theodora to go into a rage because she thinks that he lied to her. And because of that, she sees that he's trying to fulfill the prophecy. And in the process of seeing Glinda and the wizard together and trying to actually fulfill the prophecy while they're literally in the Munchkin town, she thinks that the wizard's going to actually marry Glinda and forget about her. And in the process, Evanora says she make the pain go away by giving her a green apple. I thought people would know by now. Never trust a girl who can gives you a green apple. So, we see through this that she eats the apple out of rage just because she doesn't want to see Glinda and Oz on the throne. And after finally biting it, she realizes that Evanora was the real Wicked Witch, her sister was the real Wicked Witch, and Glinda wasn't, and that she lied to her. But even though she found out the truth, it's too late for her, and she ends up caressing her heart because it's her heart withering away to nothingness, and she will feel nothing but wickedness. And in this process, Theodora passes out, and we see her skin as green as nothing. Now you probably guessed who she is. That's right. Theodora turned into the one and only Wicked Witch of the West. And her hat that she wore in the beginning of the film, she turns into the black hat that we all see in the real original Wizard of Oz. And that laugh, she really did very well. In the process, she ends up confronting Oz and Glinda and trying to prove that Oz is nothing but a moral man. And because the only reason she hates Oz is because, well, when she turned into the Wicked Witch, she was thinking of nothing but him, and the anger she felt for feeling betrayed and literally he never loved her and everything else like that. Glinda tries to reverse this process with Theodora, but it never works. In the process, Theodora, this is where the broom thing comes in, because Oz mentioned, why don't you have a broom? Because you're a witch. But she doesn't know why she needed a broom in the first place. She ends up taking one of the brooms from the Munchkins and riding off on it, and actually threatening to kill every person in Glinda's kingdom. In this process, Oz comes up with the most amazing idea, even though he's on the verge of quitting and actually giving up and not wanting to fight both Theodora and Evanora. He comes up with the most amazing idea by the help of the China Princess by coming up with some Thomas Edison stuff. And that's by actually just coming up with a whole show they were going to put on. And when they got into the show, Oz fakes his death, and Glinda ends up actually captured, but thankfully he fakes his death, and he comes up with the most amazing magic trick ever. He ends up scaring off Evanora, and Theodora at first is not fooled by any of this. But then she says she hates him so much that she leaves, that she's so scared of what he can do, that she ends up leaving. And even though he gives her a choice to return, if she ever turns back to being good, she says that she will never return. And she leaves. But before Evanora can leave, Glinda, who was the true heir to the throne, knows that Evanora killed her father and took everything away from her, to never know his laughter. And this issues in a fight where Evanora and Glinda both fight against each other. And just when Evanora almost has Glinda cornered, Glinda thankfully takes Evanora's necklace away from her, as we see when she has no sparks emitting from her hands, or whatever. Emitting from her hands, and because she broke the necklace, Evanora has no power, and she has lost her glow of youth, her eternal youth. In this process, she tries to attack Glinda, but Glinda throws her out the window, and the flying monkeys take her away to where her sister is. And that leads into the events, and after that, Oz frees the land of Oz from the Wicked Witches permanently. But when they return, they all have to band together. And in this time, the land of Oz is now free, and the wizard has taken his place on the throne. And him and Glinda share a kiss, and everything is happy dandy in the land of Oz. So really, guys, and that leads into the events of the Wizard of Oz. So basically, That's basically the backstory of Oz that we know of. From the wizards coming here to the evolution of the Wicked Witch of the East and West. And we find out Glinda is the heir to the throne. Now, there's a whole theory I have where Glinda's name is really Ozma, and that the king that was basically the King of Oz, as said in Return to Oz, that Ozma was the true heir to the throne. It says that I'm thinking probably Glinda's real name is Ozma, but that's a theory but that again, guys, that theory is for another day, and that actually is kind of true. And maybe it is true, maybe it's not. Maybe you can go back and watch throughout Oz the Great and Powerful and maybe think, or watch Return to Oz and Oz the Great and Powerful and see if you guys think that Glinda is Ozma. Now let's get into the events of The Wizard of Oz. Now that we passed Oz the Great and Powerful and we know now the origin story of the wizard, Glinda, and the Wicked Witches of the East and West. The Wizard of Oz, Dorothy it's been many years since the Wicked Witches left Oz, and Dorothy is now here. Now let's get into the events that we know to think it's either a dream or it's real. Now, there are many signs that maybe Oz is not real. But the first thing we know is Oz does have a past, and obviously there was an evolution before the Wicked Witches. Now, I'm not saying Oz the Great and Powerful is canon, but then again, it does show a lot of new and improved things that we never knew about. And I wish they would make a Wizard of Oz remake to this, but nobody can take Judy Garland's place as Dorothy. So, let's see what we can prove from the Wizard of Oz. Now, we do know Oz has a past. That's a check on the list of real. Now, the only way we can prove it's probably a dream is through the one thing that Dorothy has left from her journey, besides leaving her friends behind and the Emerald City, and all of Oz that she is saved from the Wicked Witch's reigns, is the one thing we have to answer, which can probably prove if Dorothy is really dreaming or it was real. Because if you see in the 1939 version of Wizard of Oz, Dorothy wakes up in bed, but in the Return to Oz, Dorothy wakes up without her shoes on in her stockings. Now, there's one thing left to prove. Now, we do know Dorothy ends up actually, in many other forms of the Wizard of Oz, we see Dorothy end up actually taking a lot of things home from Oz, and even bringing back some stuff. But there's actually one thing that will prove Oz either a dream or reality, and that is the ruby slippers. Now, if you'll remember the ruby slippers very much, it's those beautiful diamond with real rubies in the bows slippers that Dorothy wears in The Wizard of Oz. These shoes are the whole theory that we are basing our theory on. This is the whole thing we're basing the theory on. So, you know why, guys? Because basically, The Wizard of Oz, in The Wizard of Oz book and movie, we see throughout the Return to Oz and the original Wizard of Oz that Dorothy's shoes are missing in the book and in the movie. Now, in the 1939 version, Dorothy wakes up in bed. We never see her. She's underneath the sheets, so we never know if she kept the ruby slippers or not. Then again, in the Tom and Jerry version of The Wizard of Oz, we do see that Dorothy's shoes are there in the Back to Oz with the Tom and Jerry. Now, that one cannot truly be canon because there was never a sequel to The Wizard of Oz at all. Not that there ever will be, but there's been plenty of those with Dorothy's return. So, in Return to Oz, we do see that Dorothy's shoes are missing. So, and this one was basically the real thing from the book. Basically, Return to Oz was based on the book that I read back in college, that I read today in college. Now, the ruby slippers, then there's actually some, besides the ruby slippers, guys, proving that Dorothy may or may not be telling the truth and that it may not be real, is what happens when she actually goes to a dream state and returns to Oz. Now, we all know from the book and movies that Glinda gives her the power. Now, sure, we don't see Glinda return to Oz, but we do know for a fact that she's the reason that Dorothy goes home all the time. And there are other theories. There are people out there that tell that Glinda's the true villain of the Wizard of Oz, and that she puts Dorothy in a dream state and tells her that all this is fake and real and not real. At first I didn't believe that, but then I watched how it should have ended, and Glinda just tapped her wand on Dorothy's forehead and basically sent her back home. This is all a dream, all that stuff. And basically the few words we know she says in the Wizard of Oz movie, there's no place like home. Now, true enough, guys, that is those 5 words actually mean something. Now, I'm not saying Dorothy's dream world is real. Now, the books and movies are really messing this up for me, basically saying how bad it is. But as we all know, Dorothy ends up waking up. In the book, she wakes up in a field with her stockings off, and literally she has nothing but her bare feet. And she runs to her Aunt Em and Uncle Henry and finds them and everything like that. That even happens in Legends of Oz, Dorothy's Return. And even though she actually returns like with her clothes intact and everything else like that, and shoes and everything, we see that she takes a feather that used to belong to Wiser. Now, true enough, in Return to Oz, we do see that Dorothy is sitting on the mud and she is still in her stockings. Now, the 1939 version is really making this hard on me because we never know if Dorothy was really dreaming. Because again, guys, she did have doppelgangers of the people that she knew about. Of the people that she knew back home, including the Scarecrow, Lion, Tin Man, and even the Wicked Witch. Now, we do know from the 1939 version that, true enough, this could not be real. But as we see from many others, and many other movies that basically disregard the rules and laws of this thing, we can tell from the book and the original book that Dorothy had lost the ruby slippers on the way home. And even when she returns the shoes in Return to Oz, we see that she returns home with no shoes whatsoever. So is Oz a real place? Well, let's just see from the evidence. Is Oz a real place? Well, it does have a whole history, and the people that were from the first film that became the villains or the heroes we all know ended up were there even before Dorothy arrived. And true enough, these people were still there even before the wizard came, and even before Dorothy even came into the world. Because remember, Dorothy wasn't born yet in Oz the Great and Powerful. But is Oz a real place? Well, they do have a history, and these people that were from the first movie who became villains or heroes literally were there before Dorothy even arrived in Oz, and all these places were here before then, and they are surrounded by a great desert. And true enough, guys, from theorists all over the world, apparently Oz was cut off from the rest of the world a long time ago. So and when Dorothy loses her shoes and the ruby slippers are either on her feet or they were lost, this may prove either way, if they were on her feet or not, or if they were lost, the only way that this is proving that this place is real is by Dorothy's dream. When we see her in the 1939 version, she wakes up in bed. Now, there's a theory that probably she woke up in bed because her aunt and uncle carried her in there and carried her because she was dropped back in the house. But remember, guys, in the 1939 version, she was knocked out by a window, so it could cause hallucinations, and she was probably lifted up into the... And after all, the twister did happen, but Dorothy was knocked unconscious. Now, she could have dreamt all this, but then again, she does wake up perfectly fine in the Return to Oz movie. Now, if they make a remake of The Wizard of Oz, and from what we can see from the Once Upon a Time version, even though she did melt the Wicked Witch of the West, she does return home with the silver slippers. I know they're supposed to be silver, guys. They're really ruby in the movies, but they're never really mentioned in Oz the Great and Powerful at all. And as we all know, the Wicked Witch of the East, or Evanora, wore the ruby slippers. Now, she may have wore them underneath her dress, but we'll never know, because I have to probably go back and watch Oz the Great and Powerful all over again to know if the ruby slippers were there underneath her feet or not. But thankfully, guys, I can prove this basically proves a lot. And from my evidence, I declare Oz is real. And Dorothy may be imagining it in the 1939 film. We can conclude from the books and from the rest of the films that came out in 21st century version that Oz is a real place. And that Dorothy didn't imagine this, because she did get swept up in the tornado. And as proved by tornadoes experts people, tornadoes can sweep up people, and they can, yes, they can drop them. Especially in Kansas. There are many F5s up there. So my conclusion is Oz is real. Now, you all may disagree with me, but I know there are some out there who actually believe that Dorothy's dream of Oz and the place that she dreamt of and the place that she thinks she belongs was real. So yeah, guys, that's basically all today. And this basically proves that Wonderland and Oz are real. Now, if you guys want to know, if you guys have any thoughts or any questions as to, is this place really real? Or if you think that Oz and Wonderland are not real places, or you have a few, you want to talk to me about some of this stuff, I am free to talk to. So now I'm going to upload this video, and I will do another theory actually in a bit. And I'll probably talk about, is the Doctor a hero? Now, from what we can tell, I will talk about more of that stuff. But I want you all to like and subscribe to my channel if you guys love these videos. And I will do more, I promise you guys. I've just been busy lately, and I have exams tomorrow, so I just want you all to know these videos mean a lot. And I want my channel to grow and grow, and I hope that you guys will love my videos. So I'm going to upload this video, and then I'm going to do another video. I'll probably do one on the book thief, and I'll do one for that one as well. So I will see you all later in the next video. Bye, guys! See you later, and remember to subscribe